Scripts, a little bite-sized podcast. I'm your host, Simone Southers, and welcome to the second part of the Why Fanfiction miniseries, or what fanfiction is in general. We went over what fanfiction was in our previous part, so if you want to check that out, that is on the Scripts channel. And today we'll just get right on into the relevance of fanfiction and why it even needs to be talked about. I know I previously mentioned Dante's Inferno as a version or example of fanfiction. There are stories written today that are reimaginings of Sherlock Holmes, who was originally written by Arthur Doyle. So you have the Sherlock Holmes movies, there's a lot of those. There is the show, the books that are written about the character. It doesn't have to be a book that the fanfiction is based off of. It can be any type of media, and it can be characters as well. Like Jane Austen, she based one of her Pride and Prejudice characters off of a folklore tradition, and given that Sherlock Holmes is still being reimagined to this day, and Jane Austen is enjoyed by many modern day readers who write continuations of her stories, there must be something important about writing fanfiction. I actually had to do a bit of research for this part because I know what an insider's perspective is on fanfiction, but not so much an academic or outsider's perspective. What I've come to find out is that fanfiction is typically viewed as negative because of how not safe for work it can be, or how it typically is depicted as that way, and most of the authors being amateur writers or just really young people who don't really know how to write yet. Can't deny that that is not true, but it definitely depicts an overarching negative view on fanfiction as a tool. And I say tool because although it is amateur writers producing the work, it helps develop this interest surrounding writing in general. And to write a story, you need to know how to implement a story structure, how you're going to write the story, because there are many different ways to write one in general, and fanfiction is not excluded from that. It gets amateur writers researching how to better their writing, probably paying a bit more attention in school, and it's just to better work at their craft or the piece of writing that they're currently interested in. In a way, fanfiction is just the jumping off board of potential writers of the future who could be writing the next best-selling book for the New York Times. Although the hard work of the story structure has already been formed, because those who are reading and writing the fanfiction, they know the story of the main source kind of going on in the back of their heads. But, anything to get anyone into a certain career path where one could prosper. I believe it's important to have that safe space in order to explore, in order to create without judgment or harsh criticisms, unless someone would want criticism on their piece of fiction, then good for them. But it would not be right to take away such a safe way to explore writing. I mean, if it was taken away, there would be contraband of it somehow. I mean, we still have fan art, which is just art of mainstream creations, but I mean, that also works the same way. They're both pieces of art, one visual and one written, and it's just to show how much you like the main source material, because there's a lot of effort that goes into writing, that goes into drawing something. Perhaps you can call this series In Defense of Fanfiction, because I believe it's not that harmful to write pieces of fiction of source material that you enjoy, and it's a place where you can safely enjoy or safely interact with the source material. In just setting the literary academic lens aside, fanfiction can just generally be good and entertaining to read, even though there are amateur writers and sentences and syntax might not flow as well as we would see in traditional publications of books and articles and all that. As long as someone enjoys the piece of fiction that is read, I feel like that is a job well done on the author's part of the fanfiction. And that will be it for today's episode. Thank you for listening to both parts. I assume you listened to both parts. If not, that is fine. But thank you for tuning in and being here. I appreciate your presence, and I will see you next time.